Good afternoon, everybody. To begin, we are going to be listening to Mary Point of Musqueam people, and she will give the opening. Thank you very much, Mary.
Haichka, Judy, Haichka. Asiamnasiaya, Antha Mary Point, Tanitsana Homathquium. Iata'i, Homathquium Village, the Blueberry Forest, Samalsum, Ami Tsepquatquilim. In the language of my ancestors, I let you know my name is Mary Point. I'm from Musqueam. I'm sitting in my office today in the Musqueam village of Ktsamaltsum, once known as the Blueberry Forest, a place of abundance where we thrived until we were rudely asked to leave to make way for the airport. The last words I said to you were Ami Tsepquatquilim. I welcomed you to my virtual space. I'm so pleased to be joining with you today, and I ask all visitors to the call to think of the first people of the land wherever they are. I really appreciate Judy and Bernie and all involved in this important work, and I won't say too much more. I'll just let you know that we all have connections to our women and children who've been taken from us all too soon, and that we commemorate them and think about them and pray for them every single day. And we are here at all times to lift each other up as we walk this path together. So with all that being said, I'm going to share a song that comes from my great uncle Dominic Point, his traditional name Tiakthet. Tiakthet and my family, the Point family, hail from the Musqueam village of Quayach. Quayach, for those of you who've ever been to the Lower Mainland, is now known as Gary Point in Steveston. So renamed by Captain Vancouver, who, like the Spanish before them, just renamed all our village spaces and places. And in fact, they renamed us. We became known as the Indians from the Point. And when it became legally required for us to have a last name, our last name became Point. There's been a lot of talk about whether we want to undo all that, but there's 2,800 points now, so we know who we are and where we come from, and we're Musqueam people, proud people, and we stand together strong. So I'm going to sing this song of the land that comes from Quayach, from Tiakthet. It's our Musqueam paddle song. It's a song that we sing when we're entering a new community to let people know we're coming with good intentions. It's a song that we sing when we're standing in community to let people know a little bit about who we are. And it's a song that we sing at the beginning of any new journey, a wedding, a funeral, a graduation, or days like today when we gather to share and learn together. Normally, it's a song that my elders would say when they're out on the water. They sing it over and over and over again until the ancestors come and sit with us. But we're a little bit late starting because of technical difficulties. So I'm just going to sing it through once, but just know that I ask all of my ancestors that are here to come and stand with us and sing. And if you know it from wherever you are, Judy, you might want to sing along with me. Yo, hey, he-oh, hey, he-oh, hey, he-oh, hey, he-oh, hey, hooey, 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 hooey. Hi, Zepka. Thank you for allowing us to begin this meeting in a good way. And hi, Judy, for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mary. I'm so grateful that you are part of us. And thank you for all your messages and your wise words. So my name is Judy Hanazawa. I'm the co-chair of the NAJC Human Rights Committee, National Association of Japanese Canadians Human Rights Committee. I'm speaking to you from the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And the first thing I'd like to say is my heart and thoughts are with the families and the communities of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, Two-Spirit Plus peoples. And I know that today is a day to remember them as well as to listen and learn from our wise and knowledgeable speakers. So my first duty here is to introduce you to the two people who are the presidents of the two organizations who have helped develop this presentation. And after that, I will give you a run through of the program for the day, and including introducing our speakers. So first of all, I'd like to ask Cary Sakiyama from the Greater Vancouver Japanese Canadian Citizens Association to say a few brief words. And after that, I will ask for Les Kojima, who is the president of the National Association of Japanese Canadians. And then I will be able to introduce you to our esteemed and knowledgeable speakers. Thank you very much. Cary.
Thanks, Judy.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Cecilia. My name is Cary Sakiyama. I'm the president of the Greater Vancouver Japanese Canadian Citizens Association. I'm speaking to you here from our office on the unceded traditional ancestral territories of the Hunkaminam and Squamish speaking peoples in Burnaby, BC. I am very proud and feel very honored and privileged to be part of this. I'm encouraged to see the people that are here. I'm very happy to see that there is a desire and a commitment from our community to be part of this meaningful work. And I want you to know that it's a big part of our journey, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cary. And next we'll have a few brief words from President of the NAJC, Les Kojima.
Thank you, Judy. So I'm Les Kojima. I'm joining you this afternoon from Winnipeg, which is Treaty 1 territory, ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and homeland of the Red River Métis. Winnipeg is also a city that was described by Maclean's magazine in January 2015 as the most racist city in Canada. To support that claim, Maclean cited the murders of Indigenous women and girls like 16-year-old Renelle Harper, 15-year-old Tina Fontaine, and other cold cases. The article went on to describe the racist taunts and verbal abuse that Polaris Music Prize winner Tanya Tagak had been subjected to, and it referenced the completely senseless death of Brian Sinclair, who died while awaiting care in a city hospital emergency room, perhaps partly because staff assumed he was a drunken Indian who just needed to sleep it off. The thing is that 1 year later, the same magazine ran an article that proclaimed Winnipeg a leader in fixing its racism problem. This may be a lesson we can learn and hopefully take forward from things like this event that we're doing today. But how did that happen in just 1 year? Well, our mayor at that time was Brian Bowman. who just happens to be Métis, the first mayor of Winnipeg of Aboriginal descent in the city's history. And he had just started his second year in office. He's a very young man at the time when that first Maclean's article came out. And instead of taking a defensive position to protest that we're not the most racist city in Canada, Mayor Bowman called community leaders in Winnipeg to City Hall to say, we've got a problem here, and how do we fix it? I was so proud of Mayor Bowman for taking that approach, and I told him so at the time. In 2017, a year after the second Maclean's article, Winnipeg City Council unanimously appointed the Indigenous Accord as a tool in which Indigenous and non-Indigenous Winnipeggers could come together and explore reconciliation. I'm very proud of the fact that the Japanese Cultural Association of Manitoba was one of the very first signatories to the Indigenous Accord. That was Art Mickey at the Forks on a sunny day in the summer of 2017. Mayor Bowman did not seek a third term. He served from 2014 to 2022. After he retired, he still came to JCAM gala dinners and Japanese Pavilion at Folklorama. For a while, he was a special ambassador for the Winnipeg Foundation, but just a couple of months ago, he was appointed a justice on the Court of King's Bench of Manitoba. He's a lawyer, and he was appointed to the Court of King's Bench. I mention that because I happen to know two other justices on the court. One is a childhood friend of mine, but the other is a guy named Michael Thompson, who is one of the two sons of Grace Aiko Thompson, whom I know some of you know. So Winnipeg is also the seat of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, which in 2020 passed a bill recognizing another Métis leader, Louis Riel, and who was bestowed with the honorary title of First Premier of Manitoba. That bill made it mandatory to teach in Manitoba schools about the contributions that this great leader made to our province and to Canada. And we love him over here. We have statues to the guy. And just yesterday I was at a function called Louis Riel. We observe Louis Riel Day in February every year in Manitoba, but he only holds an honorary title as premier. And in October of 2013, I think, as you know, Wab Kinew was elected the first First Nations Premier of Manitoba and the first First Nations Premier in Canada. So I'm proud to be from Winnipeg. NAJC has long been interested in the MMIWG2S issue and in truth and reconciliation in general. For me personally, the virtual tour of the Mohawk Institute Residential School was a real eye-opener. That was arranged by our Toronto chapter. Thank you, Kim. I see her online. And took place before the discovery of over 200 unmarked graves of Indigenous children at the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in May of 2021. NAJC has, I think you probably know, in January of 2023, when the Honorable Carolyn Bennett and Honorable Mark Miller and Senator Michele Audette visited Winnipeg, we wrote to them and to the Premier of the province and to the Mayor of Vancouver to let them know that we stood with the Indigenous leaders that they were going to be meeting with that weekend. And after that, we've also written to the Minister of Indigenous Services, Patty Haju, and the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Gary Anandasangari, and Senator Audette again, to urge the federal government to intervene in the search or non-search of the Brady Road landfill for the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. So this is an issue that's high priority, great interest to NAJC, and I'm really looking forward to the presentation today. I'd like to thank our NAJC Human Rights Committee for putting it together.
Thank you very much, Les, for you. Thank you so much. We're going to move on so that we can introduce our esteemed speakers. But just to let you know, generally speaking, we will hear from actually we will have four speakers at this point. But unfortunately, Dr. Sandra De La Ronde from Winnipeg will not be able to join us as we had planned. She just recently contacted because we are aware that she's addressing a landfill matter on this very day. and at this very time. And so based on what she has said are the needs of families, she will not be able to make it. And I'm sure that we all completely understand the priorities that she has shared with us. And we think of her, and we think of those families at the landfill. So the speakers in order will be the Honorary Senator Michele Audette, followed by Skundaal Bernie Williams from the Vancouver, British Columbia coastal area. And Skundaal will also partner with Elder Lorna Brown, who is with the Highway of Tears in her presentation. And then thirdly, there will be a PowerPoint presentation and speaking from Darlene R. Okimesam Sakot from Saskatoon. And after that, we will have a break, and then we will have the speakers come back again for some dialogue. It seems wonderfully that everybody knows one another, and it's totally understandable because these are the women warriors who have been working on this matter for decades. And I so look up to them for the work they do. And so they will have dialogue, and then we'll weave in some questions from our community members. And then there'll be some a request to you all participants to put in the chat about your ideas about ways that our community, Japanese Canadians, can stand with and work in solidarity with the families and communities of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls plus. And then at the end, we'll have some parting words from Terumi Kawara, who is a senior member of the NAJC Human Rights Committee. And then we will end with parting words from me as well. So there's your program. I'd like to begin now by introducing our esteemed first speaker, the Honorable Senator Michele Audette. Thank you, Senator.
Merci, thank you, Chinashikamadno. Kwekesno Odentan Otasiwa Inut, les Atikamek, les Malécites, les Abenaki, les Wendat, la nation Innu. I just acknowledge all the First Nation that have been here for thousands of years. There's 5 of us. There's more, of course, but 5 of us who've been walking on this place that we call Quebec City, or the big river that finished to Quebec. And it's the beautiful nation of the Wendat people, the Innu, the Atikamekw, the Wendat, and the Wolastoqey. I'm blessed also to carry 2 cultures. My dad is the most beautiful Quebecois who wants to separate from Canada, who believe that Quebec should be a country. And my mom, she's a superwoman, fearless like Bernie, who started Quebec Native Women and Native Women Association of Canada when she was very young. And she's from the Innu Nation. So I always acknowledge my parent. I want to also say thank you to Mary. I recognize your voice, and then your prayer, your song was just perfect. It brought me back to your beautiful territory where my son Amun live and my granddaughter Tailin. So I say thank you. Thank you also for the 2 spokespersons from your organization, Manitoba and Vancouver. The letter were powerful, the statement, the advocacy, but also just to say thank you because all of us, we faced the colonial violence when in your country people decided that you were not human, and you fought, you stood up, and still today you find peace or love or I don't know, the energy or resilience to stand beside us, the Indigenous people of this beautiful land that now called Canada. But it wasn't Canada for us. It was Nitassinan. So I always acknowledge that, like the South African people standing at the La Haye Court, International Court for the Palestinian people, you know, when we have solidarity like this, either at the international or in a community or in a city, it's always a big power for me, or a beautiful power that help us to walk together. So I acknowledge that. I say thank you to Bernie also to be patient with me, Darlene also, who is and was there when I started many moons ago, way before I had my 5 children. Now I have 5, but those days it was 2 beautiful sons. And of course, Sandra, who is not with us today, but another amazing warrior. And of course, Lorna, where we went to your place and walked that day, not long ago. And of course, there's other people that we don't see today, but they were part of my journey, or I was part of the journey, and I love to bead. So everybody's a little bead or pearl, and at the end of the day, it's where I am today. I have to make sure that I don't forget the strength, the tears, the anger, the hope, or the message that they share over the years. And there's many years of that in my journey. No matter which pair of moccasin we wear, as a mom, grandmother, senators, or work in the university, or just walking during a demonstration, first of all, as human being, that we carry responsibility. And mostly after this national inquiry, it's something that I will never, never, never forget, because it was powerful, it was tough. And knowing that we carry some answer that we cannot share to family members that we know where their baby are carried, or their sister, because we got some proof or document, but because we're pushing, hoping that provinces and territory or Canada will put some legislation to make sure that they open their archives and files. And when we went through that experience with the National Inquiry, it was the voices, many mistake was done, or many, things, because it was the first time ever, but the power of their voices to be part of a document at the end, for me, it was that part very difficult, that they decided to call it Call for Justice. And everything was important, everything was a crisis, or everything that they brought close to 10,000 recommendation in 33 months of that journey. And we agree by combining or putting together by theme, human rights or safety rights or culture rights, all those lens of rights, we decided to go ahead with the 251 Call for Justice. But we also know when a country or a province will put an inquiry in place, it's also to muzzle the movement. We have to be honest. It's to make sure that, okay, during my mandate, something is happening. So we'll put everything on the shoulder of the individual or the group that is doing this inquiry or this huge study. But we didn't give up. We continue. And for sure, when we came at the end presenting the report, they leaked the report. I won't say which provinces. There's more than one that leaked the report, telling that we're talking about a genocide. Not only one, but many forms of genocide that happened since the women were facing with that colonial violence. And we ask Canadian lawyers, write the way that Canada think, or the people in that government. Us, we live it, but you write it to make sure that on that side, the one who ordered us to do that, in few months, when you look at the history of many inquiry, speak their language to tell them what happened and still what is happening here in Canada. So because it was leaked, it prepared the federal government and the province and territories to say, it's not what we think, or blah, blah, blah. But it did shake the world, because the following day we had the international community requesting, about more information, and it was like shaking. And now they cannot pretend that it didn't happen or it's not happening. But that time for me, I was going slowly, not knowing, but having an old dream to finish my days at the Senate to change the Indian Act. I was 28 years old when I wanted to go at the Senate. I didn't think it was the right place when I was younger, because I thought they were all white, colonial, and didn't understand us. But after presenting on C31 the impact on my mom, me, and my kids, I said to my friend lawyer, I said, Diane, when I'll be old, I want to go at the Senate to change or eradicate the Indian Act. But now it's not only the Indian Act, because 2 years ago it did happen. I was appointed at the Senate, but it's also to make sure that the call for justice, the call for to action also for another inquiry, very important, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that people understand that you order us to do that. Now, how are you going to honor it? How are you going to make them alive? Because not just because you say unceded territory, that check done, you're okay. No, you have to make sure that every word you use as a senators, member of parliament, or people that work in the parliament, how do we implement those recommendations, calls to action, and calls to justice? And I mobilized a few family members, and Bernie was one of them, with Denise, pick two. Tell me which one we should focus. I'm inside, we used to call it the beast, or I'm inside that square place or that colonial place that wanted us to be to disappear. Which one I should prioritize, And we agreed that we will go ahead with 2 calls for justice. But at the same time, the one on ombudsperson and then human rights tribunal on Indigenous rights, of course. And knowing also that being inside now, telling the government every day, every minister that we can meet, or every commission or committee or study that we have in a chamber or in parallel, when we travel or when we meet people, which call to justice are you implementing or honoring? And to be honest, not enough. We all know that. We all know that. But because we have allies like you that will send letters and next election, ask every political party, where are you with this? And from the grassroots community that are close to you, or the nation that are close to you, because the territory are big, we're everywhere. And it's not only on one subject, it's every subject. Everything is important to make sure that our voice is there. We talk about environment, we talk about safety, we talk about culture, languages, and all of that. We are everywhere, and we're not going to give up. So knowing that we are not far enough with the call for justice, for sure now we're doing a study right now to present to the federal government or to the other chamber, the member who are elected, how we can have an ombuds office, how it should be built, and the voices or the family could tell you how it should be built or done, and of course an Indigenous human rights tribunal. And from that we can monitor every year at the federal level, through the municipal level, or the community level. If we don't have those mechanisms, it's just going to be another, let's do another study to muzzle another movement. And that's too late for me. So with love and anger, but I tried not to show it, it's to say thank you for the families who helped me to go through that experience, that journey, or that place that even in our own family, we lost loved one or victims of many, many, many trauma and all of that. But the love and the sisterhood or the brotherhood or familyhood helped me and still help me today to stand and walk with the families. Merci beaucoup.
Gigi, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Honorable Senator. Thank you for being so articulate and frank and honest about the story of yourself and the story of your work. It teaches so much to communities like Japanese Canadians about the real on the ground work being done. So thank you so much. And now we will go on to the second speaker. And this is Galjija Skundaal Bernie Williams, who is Haida, a chief, a hereditary chief and sculptor. Skundaal is going to introduce another speaker who is her partner in this presentation, an Elder Lorna Brown. And I would like, and I'm sorry I didn't say this before, but as each speaker speaks, I would really like anything you want to say about yourselves to please be part of it. And thank you so much to the Honorable Senator for providing that background, because I know that it's important information. And so now I'm going to make space and introduce Skundaal Bernie Williams and Elder Lorna Brown. Thank you.
I just want to say how to all of you, to the Elder Mary Point, how for allowing us to do this work here and play here in your beautiful territory. My name is Galjija Jad. I am from the Haida Nation, which actually Michele Audette's going to be adopted into our family, hopefully it's coming up soon anyways. But to the family members too, and to the survivors, our prayers and our love always. I am a family member. I lost 3 of my family members to the downtown east side. My mother was murdered here, November 5th, 1977, on these very streets. I'm only 1 block away. 2 of my sisters were also murdered, one behind the Sunrise Hotel and one at the Balmoral and one at, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, it's down the road. And my baby sister was found murdered in Merritt, BC. The Cobalt is called. My apologies. This was not the work that I had wanted, being on the front lines. A quick background. I became the first and only woman to apprentice under Bill Reed, and that was my aspirations, my dream, my goal was to be a master carver. The expressions of what I do defines who I am through my art, and my world changed when these elders came down to the Bill Reed studio on Granville Island. My life changed, and to know who I am, to where I come from, I started this journey with these Elder Harriet Nahaney, Elder Mary McCaskill, Elder Bernice Brown, Elder Kitty Sparrow, and Elder Rita Blind. I only have 1 elder left, and that's Elder Rita. We do a lot of work together on the front lines yet. This was not a journey that I ever dreamt of. It was very difficult as a single mom. I wanted to just go to work, and my world changed. I find out who I am. My mother, because I grew up as an orphan in residential school, ended up in Provo, Utah through the 60s scoop, and also out Indian Day School. So here I am. I started in this movement back in 1986. Like I said, my world changed in 1991, 92. Never expected. Learning about who my mother was and is, and my sisters, what had happened to them at that was my journey. Never expected to still be doing this work. So zooming forward through my journey, we got involved with the Robert Willie Pickton. Back then, there were 69 women that were missing and murdered back then. Never realized that there were so many I didn't even understand, did not, I was young, I was in my 30s, I'm going to be 67 now. I thought I would be retired, enjoying that this is still my work, that, and I met Senator Michele Audette through this journey decades ago. Never thought that I was going to be her grandmother through the National Inquiry. And to date, I'm one of 2 advisors to her, and along with Denise Pictou-Maloney. But through this journey up to date here, we've walked across Canada, northern BC for the Highway of Tears, total 7 times in that to create the awareness. And it's very sad for me to say that nothing has changed. I was reading a thing with CBC where the government is at, and it was based on from last June and only 7 out of 11 of the calls for justice has not been still fulfilled. We are still on these front lines. We were up at the northern BC for the February 14th, where we for Cheers to Hope, which is Lorna Brown, who's the founder, and Gladys Raddick with the Walk for Justice, along with myself and Senator Michele Audette, a former MLA, Melanie Mark, so many. This was the largest gathering in their history up there to date in that. We all share at the common story that nothing has changed. There's lots of money that are going out, millions and millions of dollars. And I currently sit as an advisor with the MMIWG with the city. And I have to say that Rachel Watney, who is from Saskatchewan, has done a phenomenal, amazing job with. We are trying to implement and to overlap with the MMIWG with UNDRIP that is currently being worked on right now, and really not much movement. I have to say that, and I'm still on these front lines. Nothing really has changed, and that's really shameful. When we're up back in Paris with, I call her my auntie, Lorna Brown, and they share the same stories. Trying to get the police involved. We currently came back from doing a grid search up in Salmon Arm, BC too. We were there for a few days and that, and where one of my relatives, Deanna Work, has been missing. There's 4 women that are missing in the area up there, and absolutely still nothing is done. Women are still being human trafficked out here on these very streets to date. We had spoken to one of the police officers, and we keep asking what is being done. And so you can write down as many buildings or suspects along with it. Same thing we had done with Robert Willie Pickton. I was almost one of the victims to Robert Willie Pickton, who had followed me after I had gotten gas in my vehicle. We were ready to leave to Vancouver Island 7:30 that morning, and the fear that is still on these streets now. Now we have a whole new group of young men that have come in from Montreal, and they're a very large gang. I just got a call, like I was telling Darlene a little over an hour ago now, that possibility of women's remains in this one building behind this building just down the road. And it really instills that fear yet that we believe, and even the police believe, that they believe and we believe that there's more than 3 serial killers that are still on these streets yet here in Vancouver, and yet nothing has been done. So we're hoping and praying that through this advisory with the city, with Michele and with Rachel Watney, that our anti-Mary Point and anti-Cecilia Point sit on that advisory too. So we're hoping that through this, once it is implemented, and one of the things that we've been really getting pushed back a lot on is we've been telling the people and these organizations that the work is already done. The families have already spoken. Like you heard Senator Michele Audette saying, there was over 10,000 recommendations. To condense that down to 231 calls, and we keep saying that the work is already done. Now we just have to execute it. I'm really having a difficult time with some of these organizations that are still not, pushing in that, and that the work's been done by the family. And we also recognize and understand that through this process that every city, every municipality, every urban area is all, yes, very different, but still have very much similarities to what we are facing down here still, and along with the Highway of Tears. One of the things also that we have also recognized here is that there's Vancouver Island has been left out of the process. We've spoken to one of the elders that short years ago, that this elder who's from very northern BC, up by Fort St. James, had mentioned the possibility and trying to reach out to family members that they believe that there's over 500 women that are missing in northern BC, which used to be the gold rush, going way back then, very much of isolated areas up there. Just like my home in Haida, we live in the ocean and it's very isolated. I have a relative that has been missing for the last few years now. How could this happen? Lots of questions that are still unanswered, and it all goes back again to the RCMP. And it's been very difficult to have those conversations and that with them, because they keep saying, well, they're limited with resources, they don't have enough. And well, at the end of it, what we're seeing is a lot of these places that are getting a lot of money, but none of those monies are reaching to reach out to the family members. I have never ever received a phone call. I'm going to say with Filu, and a lot of the Filus are very different, across Canada. But here, I know that along the Highway of Tears, we don't get those calls. We are left out, and there's so many families, and we can do better in that. And I'm really grateful that we have this the Zoom call, so we can network in that with one another in that. And I think that, what the National Inquiry, had done back then is that we had all the data of phone numbers and that. And I know that, with the 4 commissioners, have reached out in that. But I think, that has got to come back, to the families again, because some of us have been left out, and we keep doing the, on the front lines. I can only speak as a frontline worker and as a family member. I know many of these organizations, and the frustration that we have as family members is, what are they doing? What are they doing out there for the families and that? It almost feels to me that it is really cherry-picked, and I can only speak as a family member myself, but the impact that it's had on my nieces and my nephews, because these are my sisters and their children. And I'm the last one left in my family. As a female, I have outlived all my brothers, and I'm the only one left. And it does weigh on us, and to reach out, and we're not getting those services, that, and we have reached out. But that's all I wanted to say about, especially down here, that nothing has changed. Women are still going missing on a high random rate, more than ever. With the national inquiry, when it started, we recognized that was the common thing, that the families, had really made their voices very clear on it. We just had another one. Like every day we are watching all across Canada, and nothing has changed. And I'm really grateful that Senator Audette is there, and that the National Japanese are here, and all the ones that are online. And we just need to keep pushing, with the governments and that. I want to know, where these monies are going to and what for. Because I know that millions of dollars have been going out. And I'm very saddened, because I thought that as a family member, that when we had the national inquiry, that this would have really sparked, and that really would have shifted, and it really hasn't. And for families like to deal with the landfills, and that the government pushing back at the families, and out here too is like human trafficking. That is, through that police officer, we heard that some of the women are being trafficked to Quebec City, and that's very alarming. And the other part of this too is Senator Audette was the one that actually went into, and I shared that space with her and time with her too, is going into at the women's prison. And the other one is we've been trying to find out how to get into like Riverview, because we haven't seen some of these men and women in that, but we are having a very difficult time. Yes, there's lots of things that they say that they're setting up, but I don't see anything out here for the children who are the survivors, who are the ones that are left behind. I'm seeing more women that are going into these jails and that, because there's nowhere for them to live. And the ones that have been aging out of care, there's nothing, absolutely nothing set up. And like I said, I can only speak as a frontline worker and as a grassroots, but also as a family member. So those were the things that we keep bringing up. Like, what about those women in prison? But I was very grateful to be with Senator Audette, when she did speak to a lot of these women who share a common story, that the justice system has not worked for them. Believing in a system that you think that it was going to protect you, and all of a sudden it turned against them. And there's so much more here, but I want to bring in my aunt. I can't speak on behalf of the Highway of Tears, even though I am a family member, but I really want her to give voice to, what is happening along the Highway of Tears, because it was actually Gladys Raddick, her sister, was Walk for Justice back then, that helped to give voice to the Highway of Tears. Back then we had received, we had 44 women's names when the police only had 12 to 14 names, and that. So we know that there's a lot that are it's not written truth in that, but if Auntie Lorna is there.
I hope she's there.
I see her name.
Okay. And is everybody on mute? Just in case she wants to
Okay,
speak.
hello.
Hello. Here she
Hello?
is. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can't see you.
And
though.
this is Lorna Brown. She is like the founding member of Tears to Hope. She's been right on the front lines with us, even when we walked across Canada and with the Highway of Tears. She's also a family member, and she's just an amazing human being. So I'm going to give it over to my auntie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can't see
All
you.
of a
but
sudden
we
my
can hear
end
you.
went really muted, so I will, if you could, as long as you can hear me. Yes, my name is Lorna Brown, and I am the founder and the executive director of the Tears to Hope Society. Our family started this work 19 years ago when my niece Tamara Chipman went missing from Prince Rupert. At that time, there was no voice for the missing and murdered women along the highway that we call Highway 16. When my niece went missing, I'll back up a bit. I guess the very first walk for awareness, my cousin Florence Nizell started. And at that time, families had no voice. People would report their loved ones missing, and it was just put out of sight, out of mind. And so at that time, that was in 1996, 95, when my niece went missing. So in March 7th, 2006, my cousin Florence Nizell wanted to do something. So she started the very first walk to raise awareness. And through that, she wanted to name her walk, and they came up with the name Highway of Tears. So that's where that name came from. So it came from the work that the family members have done. In our particular case, it'll be 19 years this year in September that my sister Gladys Raddick, she was living in Vancouver at the time, and when she heard about my niece going missing, she came up to join our family for this walk. And from there, that's when she met Bernie Williams. And we've just become, like my sister says, it's the family that nobody really wants to be a part of. We didn't ask to be a part of, but we have been there through thick and thin to support each other. So a little bit about our organization. Like so many other family members, and I hear it in the voices still today, our loved ones continually go missing, and it feels like it's worse than it's ever been. And the drug crisis is worse than it's ever been. And we are losing our young people. So for myself and our family and our organization, Tears to Hope, which actually came from working towards the Highway of Tears and working towards hope. And we know that, and I may not see it in my lifetime, but our goal is to focus in on our young people, because We know nothing has changed. The intergenerational trauma that our families have, are experiencing. So right now I'm actually on a tour. So just give you some idea of what we're working on. We're working on prevention, because it's so disheartening when you hear yet another young woman or girl goes missing. Older women, like it's our aunties, it's our grandmothers, it's our our cousins, our nieces, and the men too. It's our people. And so one of the things that we have chosen to focus on is working on prevention. Last September, we had a youth conference, which Bernie actually came up for, Bernie and Elder Rita. And we reached out to the young people in the school. And I'll back up a bit. Like, I had reached out to our women's rep from the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, Melissa Moses, and I knew that she taught self-defense. And so we were looking at, like, self-defense is good in itself as well, but we were like wanting to teach young women, because this abuse that happens with our women, has just become so normalized. And so one of the goals we set out to do was to start educating our younger people as to what violence looks like and what red flags to look at. And so she mentioned a kit to me. It's a interactive exercise, where you go through real life scenarios. And we actually just finished doing one of these workshops in Merritt, BC, where Bernie's sister was, went missing from. Another one was in Princeton, BC. And then we did one in Vancouver 2 nights ago. And then last night we were in Chilliwack, and then we're heading over to Victoria. So for me, I feel like I need to actually take action. We can't, we raise awareness, which is all great, but like, how are we helping our next generation to not become the next statistics of MMIWG2S? Like, how do we do that? And we're not saying we have all the answers, but we are working towards prevention. So with this workshop that we're doing, there's 3 versions of it. One is for teens to recognize teen date violence, what that looks like, because our generations have, the effects of the Indian residential school has, lasting impact. It has caused our generations of young people and the abuse that's been passed down from generation to generation now. And we think that things should get better, but they haven't. And so to the point that the violence against women is so normalized that it's almost like even the young people, they're at this point where they feel like, well, I'm Indigenous, so I'm, it's like this, it's normal that you would just, not that that's what they want, but it's normal for people to feel, the perpetrators to feel that they can abuse women because they're Indigenous, and people will care less because they're Indigenous. And so these kits take us through, these workshops, they take us through real life stories of women that have experienced domestic violence. And then through that, we we have a discussion afterwards and we debrief, and then we talk about what types of supports were available to these women who were trying to flee abuse. And then oftentimes throughout these stories of these real life stories, women, sometimes it took them 9 times, sometimes it took them 20 times before they would leave an abusive partner. And so, like I mentioned, there's one that's geared towards teens, another one is geared towards women, and then another one is called the economic justice, because so many women stay in abusive relationships because they have no means of supporting themselves. And so our goal with these kits and workshops is to indigenize the kit, because it is the original one comes out of the Washington state, so it's very American, whereas we want to take it and indigenize it. And the feedback that we have gotten from so many women who said, you know what, that's my story, that's my story, that's my story, but then what do we do about it? So one of the things we do want to do with it is not just raise the awareness, but women can feel like they're all alone through this, and there's the shame factor. There's so many reasons why women stay. So one of the things that we're looking at is putting, we can start advocating for supports. Okay, what is needed? And let's, so we're very, very on the ground with developing this kit. I mean, we really have just gotten started, but right now we're just doing kind of southern BC, and we've already talked to others in Alberta about the kit, and there's so many people that are organizations that are so excited, and then our goal is to train up facilitators. And we also want to bring this not just to the women so that they're aware, but we also want to bring it to police departments, RCMP, school districts, just all these different, last night we talked about chief and council, because sometimes even our own First Nations governments or hereditaries don't understand what is going on. So our goal is really to educate all across what we call Canada, that that is our goal with this kit, and just to raise the awareness and to not normalize violence against Indigenous women, and which has taken place in this country. So I'll just leave it there, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Ms. Sai.
Thank you so much, Lorna. That was very practical and realistic information. I so appreciate that you're part of this presentation. I think what we need to do is we can have more dialogue later, but we're going to go on now to our last speaker, who is Darlene R. Okemesum Sakot, and she is Cree, Beardies, and Okamesis First Nation in Saskatchewan, out of Saskatoon. Darlene, I know that you have a PowerPoint presentation, so you can let us know how you would like to begin, and anything else you would like to say about yourself. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. If you could load up to the screen, the first slide, that would be good, and then I'll say my hellos. There we go. So first off, thank you, Mary, for the song and the prayer from your territory and your land acknowledgement, and Judy for host and communicating the really lovely, inspiring words from Senator Michele. She always says such profound, beautiful, necessary sentiments that I'm not really the greatest at. I can feel that, but they all kind of jumble up because the amount of work that goes into missing Indigenous women is so busy in my head that it's often that I don't come off as having that intention, but I think my intentions are the action, and really looking forward to what the Japanese Canadians will get out of my PowerPoint. I did a PowerPoint as well over at the University of Saskatchewan for their Momentum Conference on the 8th. And that was regarding transportation safety and MMIW. So when I'm doing this kind of share with the Canadian public or students, I really got to take a lot of time to reflect on what kind of a message to bring, also what kind of things the hosts want, and to try to kind of put that story together, because most of our work on our women's group is the lived experience of the advocacy. And so I wasn't raised with Indigenous naming, but we were raised around fluent Cree language speakers and residential school survivors, and we were raised around traditional feasting for the departed, and feasts and round dance and powwow. Where I was very engaged in the community. And my father was also a veteran, and my mom was a cook in the residential school. So after they were married, I didn't know there was this kind of strategy with Indian residential schools for the young men and women to marry coming out of the residential school. I heard about it right from professor's talk in the classroom. Dr. Jim Miller, he wrote a book on history in Canada. And that was a policy or strategy, is to have those families marry and have children so they can adopt the Indian residential school thinking and behavior. So I have 14 brothers and sisters. There isn't a missing in our direct family, but my late dad's sister, her granddaughter, had been a victim of a serial killer. And I didn't talk about it the first 10 years or so of doing this work because it's the mother's story, and I don't have permission to share that anymore. But there was a time I was allowed to talk about that experience for another 5 or 6 years. So, yeah, that's who I am. I'm married and I have 3 adult sons, 1 adult daughter, and 5 grandchildren, and they're raised around the movement of my work. I've got a lot of siblings and nieces and nephews living in the city now, but they don't participate in any of this awareness. And it's not something that offends me, but it's like they're comfortable living their lives and feeling safe and trying to build a future, and that's what we want, So often, out of all of my siblings, I'm always right there doing that frontline frontline work. Next slide, please. So when April Sora, the city of Saskatoon immigration, diversity, and inclusion consultant, contacted both me and Myrna to see if either one of us would want to participate in the national dialogue. I think she had contacted us less than a year ago, and we had been waiting to see what the dialogue was going to be about and what they needed. And so, yeah, I'm glad to hear that it was still moving forward and that we were still being considered to participate. Seeing that this national dialogue is about partnership on human rights. I want to kind of steer a big part of this presentation on that little bit, that history, and then how we've really incorporated it into our work, because that's the work you're doing. It's not often that people want this group to present on human rights, but at the same time, we have to always insert it in there so people continue to be aware. So in Saskatoon, the women walking together, that's a translation for GVJCCA, and it was formed in September 2005 here in the city of Saskatoon in Treaty 6 in the homeland of the Métis. Next slide. So GVJCCA, we came together to address the high number of missing murdered Indigenous women and girls in and around the city of Saskatoon. A call to action by the Race Relations Department for the city and the Sask Human Rights Commission that was led by Donna Scott at the time. Donna Scott is a judge. I don't know if she's retired, but our mandate in 2005 was to focus on supports, remembrance awareness with families of the missing. Next slide. These are some of the images of who we are and the kind of gatherings we have. You don't get to see the actual marches. There's tons of pictures on the internet and in our Facebook group, but those are the core women in that first picture. The woman in the middle is Carol Wolf. Her daughter went missing over 10 years ago. And she's can't hear. So it had been a challenge helping her, because she had to, build trust and work with us. So that's one of the sign interpreters that we hired from SASDEF Hard of Hearing. So they're a big part of our activities when we would invite Carol to come and share her experience. And then, of course, we have Reconciliation Saskatoon. Square was part of that after the city asked for, in 2016, the year of reconciliation. So I think we were one of the first cities in the country that was kind of set the year off, and Square played a big role in how that group would first off do this big Rock Your Roots walk to raise the awareness of reconciliation. And it was in response to the calls for action with the TRC. So just so you know, that at that beginning, we had to really be patient with all of the ways the city wanted to do this awareness and this walk. So I think our experience as setting up vigils and marches, we played a big role in, helping them the first 3 or 4 years of how to really plan a good walk. And to date, they probably have over 1,000 people coming to the walk, and so it's going strong, and the square continues to be a part of reconciliation. Next slide. So in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, just to go back to when we started, we planned this gathering in the core neighborhood in Saskatoon. At the time, we invited several families of the women and girls who were gone missing at the time to come share their ongoing experience, and also we invited the media. The event was held on December 10th, International Human Rights Day, at White Buffalo Youth Lodge with about 180 people present. The premier at this gathering was former NDP Lord Calvert, where he announced a $2 million Missing Persons Task Force and later a Missing Persons Task Force partnership. So that generated so much media and people curious about who are these people, what are they doing, what are they talking about, because nobody was doing something that big, and we were very surprised at the number of people that attended our first event. Next slide. So kind of to speed that up, you'll see that I'm going to go back and forth a little bit about dates and what we were doing. But for Saskatchewan, at the time when we started our work, our awareness, this gathering was one of the first for families in the province to be sharing about the disappearance of their loved ones with the media. And the families were able to access a wider audience in the hopes of getting some tips and people considered Crime Stoppers. At our gathering, we had the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Aboriginal Women's Circle Corporation, local elders, academics, victim services, Saskatoon City Police Services Police Chief. They would attend and or speak. We put some blankets on chairs at that first event and asked families that were invited to speak to bring a photo of their loved ones to sit on the chairs. At the time when I was with the group, I think we had about 50 people, really be active that first year. And they asked me to be the liaison with families while I was at the University of Saskatchewan working at Indigenous Studies Department. And then over time, Saskatchewan had various sites and vigils and walks. Firstly, I believe in Regina when Tamara Keepness was missing, and also Prince Albert Grand Council. There's lots of missing there, and they had a big walk the first year, and it's really troubling attending those because so many people come out and they're so wanting to be a part of, the community and the families and be there for them. Next slide, please. Okay. In October 2004, the Stolen Sisters report came out, and the human rights response to discrimination and violence against Indigenous women in Canada. It's 37 pages. Amnesty International Group 33, Helen Smith McIntyre, and NWAC. Not just Group 33, all of the Amnesty groups were a part of the document. We are lucky that Helen has been with our group since we began, and she continues to represent us. I sit on the group as well. Basically, the report was to examine the role of racism, discrimination, prejudice, and bias of policies and agencies. So this was kind of like a jumpstart to even more awareness. So people had statistics and numbers and names. It's not that minimal as just examining race, but a lot of other issues related to Indigenous women and safety. So anybody wants to start off trying to understand how MMIW has, been in this country, this is a good report to start to read and to get educated on. Next slide, please. So, as a result of the Stolen Sisters report, the Sisters in Spirit movement began. This Sisters in Spirit was an initiative that continues to be led by NWAC and was earlier funded by the Status of Women back in 2005. It was to research, document, and create a database of statistics on the violence against Indigenous women and girls in Canada. In addition to raising awareness, it was to educate the public on the treatment of Indigenous women. In 2006, the first vigil took place in Ottawa. In November 8, the Sisters in Spirit released its initial report titled Voices of Our Sisters in Spirit, a report to the families and communities. The second edition came out in 2009. Next slide, please. So the Sisters in Spirit in Esquehuac, we were at the beginning of 2006, I think there was about 6 communities across the country that were hosting a vigil and a march. At the biggest number of vigils, I think it was maybe 10 years in, there was probably over 100 sites now, and some in other countries as well, in the United States. So for Esquehuac, we've been holding an annual vigil and march every October 4th. It includes the ceremony, police escorts, and family sharing about the disappearance of their loved ones. In Saskatoon, we're probably the first in the country to have a Sisters in Spirit logo on a flag, and now we have a flag raising and declaration and proclamation read out for that week and that day. So we have the flag flying in City Hall for about 3 or 4 days, depending on the day of the week the October 4th lands. And so part of the Sisters in Spirit in March 2010, then NWAP released What Their Stories Tell Us, where they counted 582 women who have gone murdered or missing in Canada. While we were doing this awareness, and I know there's a jump from 2006 to 2010, it was still like one of the most annual gatherings for the awareness. And of course, that number 582 was, 14 years ago, and that number is much different. Of those stories that are in that, What Their Stories Tell Us, over 5 families from Saskatchewan were featured in the 58-page findings. And I think it comes from the public and awareness efforts we were doing in the city that caught the attention of the NWAC staff and leaders to invite those families that were wanting to share their story. And these were families that had already spoken publicly about their missing loved ones. Next slide, please. So to continue, Saskatoon and the Sisters in Spirit, since we began in Sisters in Spirit, we've generated hundreds of concerned citizens over the 18 years. Probably over 2,000 people have participated, especially families. And throughout the years, in reflection and preparing this presentation, I was going through so many old files and photos and how far we've come, but also the sad reality of families that have endured the missing, found, someone charged, and that they've gone through that whole experience, and then you have new ones surfacing. And I think one of the hardest things for Sisters in Spirit now is it's a date that's really close to September 30th of Orange Shirt Day. So it's really taken away all of September activities for people to continue attending Sisters in Spirit. So you've lost probably 100 people attending our walk because of the September 30th Orange Day. And there's nothing wrong with the Orange Shirt Day, but our movement and our awareness did take a hit, including, during the pandemic. But, we still gathered together as best we could, and that's just the way it is now. We're not adversarial. We can't say, hey, Canada, please change that date. It's just impossible to. So we make do with what we can, and we still honor October 4th. a lot of our program for Sisters in Spirit are firstly the family speak. We have an elder, we have smudge, then we drum from one site to another. There is commemoration statues in the province, one in Prince Albert on the riverbank, one in Regina near the RCMP. There's a wheel of stones on the ground. And I think one community down in the south where Myrna's from, there is a really beautiful, it looks like a headstone, but it's not. It's a commemoration. And then in Saskatoon, we have the Dakota shawl dancer that's in front of the police station. So we have the city of Saskatoon City Council attend and participate. We have the police chief share his words about where it's at on missing women. Definitely, we have a lot of University of Saskatchewan allies. The Gordon Oaks Red Bear Center, they provide students with the initiative of helping us by creating the banners and the placards that'll be gone for the walk. And we usually enlist some of them to marshal the walk at the front and at the back. And in that walk, the families are the priority. They're in front. They're the ones that we, really take care of because they're, being very vulnerable about their loved ones. They're, upset. But we do our best to really, give them space to have their feelings and to be able to share what they are able to share at the speaking part of our event. And the reason I keep bringing this up is because when we're talking about allies, these are they're informal allies to us, to Esquelec. They're not our government people telling us how to conduct ourselves, or you can't do this or you can't do that. These are invited officials. If they want to come, if they don't want to come, that's okay. But our priorities is for those families. And we've held many of these walks starting at the Friendship Center and at the Ascalak High School up in the Broadway area. So I just want to kind of share how CIS really makes a difference is a marker date every October. Families all around the country either attend the Ottawa walk or there's a lot going on around the country. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the prayer walk, listen, witness. This is what I called it because when we're having this walk, there are people there that may have seen something. They may have a tip. And we've learned from the one former police chief that these walks do work. He has said this publicly many times over the years as he was police chief that these walks do make a difference because sometimes one of those tips lead to an arrest. And it's happened a couple of times now. In the pandemic event here with our mayor, Marjorie Bocage from the LGBT community, the police chief who's now retired, Troy Cooper. Beside him is City Councilman David Kirkton, who is a former journalist for radio at CKOM, and he interviewed me many times over the last 15 years. The couple in the middle is Brian and Deborah Gallagher, and they have national attention on their case because there are, I think, 10 accused, and their daughter went missing, and she was located a couple of years later, and now they're in trial. So they've had over 200 trial court dates since the arrest of these people. So it's really started to be, I don't like the word trend, but a scary development is a kidnapping confinement, torture, and disposing. And of late, in the last 2 or 3 years, they have been Indigenous perpetrators, men and women. So it's really a disturbing thing that's going on. And at the bottom there, you have Ashley Moore, who's been missing over 6 years. They decide to stop their walks starting July, and but they continue to be part of the missing persons movement and participation. Next, and of course, you have the NWAC. You register with them, and they'll give you their swag to hand out. Next slide, please. So, going, part of all of this work, because I'm going to lead up to the inquiry, is how we were advocating federally. Most of the time, we stayed out, SWIG stayed out of the politics of, who governs the story or the experience. And we've had a run-in with Indigenous government at one time, kind of like saying, back off and leave the families alone. And it's like, well, we can't back off because there's actually a female chief in our group that has a missing niece. So these are the kind of little things that we were experiencing, but we weren't dwelling on it because we don't have no office, we have no government funding. So we're not incorporated, we're not even nonprofit. Like we just I'm not going to say we just exist, but we exist on our own autonomy and what would work better for families. So we want to create that autonomy and freedom to do all of the things that the families are predominantly needing, which is funding to travel, to accommodations, meals, and an honorarium for sharing their experience. Because we really believe that they take so much of their personal lives, finance and emotional trauma wherever they go, and this is our opportunity to just let them feel comfortable and safe, and that we want to hear from you. We care about what you're going through. And part of that is, well, who else can we talk to about this? And Senator Lillian Dick there, she was involved with us as well. She's a part of our outer circle. We have a Indigenous circle composition to our work, and she's comes in and out of our circle. And she played a big role as well in her work, promoting an inquiry. And down throughout, you'll see that with the Prime Minister, that's probably about the 4th time I met him. And each time I've always talked about, we need an inquiry, we need an inquiry. So here at convention, where I'm wearing a blue shawl, that was a convention, a caucus meeting in Saskatoon. And we were invited to go. So I walk around and say, we need an inquiry. Well, this is what's going on at the inquiry. And there you have at the bottom Carolyn Bennett, who has always been an ally for us, even when she was in the opposition when the Conservatives were in power. So I've known her a very long time. She's very open to making sure that we're heard and that we can participate. And there we have, and you can see at the bottom there that we have, a little handful of Indigenous Liberals and the Prime Minister photobombing us. But and then there's convention with Patty Haju, and then Melody Jolie was at the Wakotawin conference in Saskatoon on the far left there. So these are these opportunities where you keep telling them over and over, this is what we need, even if it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. With Carolyn, we've been lucky that we held a round table We've invited families for private meetings with her. I don't have a picture of Mary and Monseth, but we met with her with all of the community leads. And I couldn't find that one. I really like that photo. But just gives you an idea of like where, even though we can be frontline and have no money, we can still have, access to these leaders. And they do want to listen. And what we've learned is they want to hear the Indigenous experience and what they can do to help. So that's been important. And we know before the Liberals came in that both of the other parties wanted an inquiry as well. So it was good to know that, in 2015, people want to change that and help the country and help the families with how do we go about caring for the situation of MMIW. Next slide, please. So the reason I put National Inquiry 2015, it really didn't start there, but that's when the Liberal government announced in 2015 November to hold a national inquiry on MMIW Two-Spirit Plus. In Saskatchewan, we put on an ad hoc circle called Saskatchewan, Community Leads Team. It consisted of Esquewek, we were the only front line, Regina Treaty Status Indian Services, FSIN's Women's Secretariat, Prince Albert Grand Council, Women's Circle, and the Saskatchewan Aboriginal Women's Circle Corporation. We all applied and were granted party withstanding. Some received contributions from the Privy Council and some didn't. Esquewek participated in planning the launch and attended the ceremony in Gatineau, Quebec. So now, probably because we had just held a roundtable in September in Saskatoon with Carolyn Bennett, and she wanted to keep that momentum of talking with families and how do you want to see this? How do you want to see the launch look like? So I think there's about 8 of us women across the country, families, that helped her kind of plan with her team how to launch the inquiry or announce it. Oh, next slide, please. Okay, once we've had party withstanding and all of our community leads, we're all working together, having our constant meetings with the regional support from the inquiry. The fast-moving train was all this truth-gathering process, aftercare services, the Part 1 community hearings, Part 2, Part 3 knowledge keeper expert institutional hearings. I wasn't a part or submitted anything for forensic, the review project, but we played a role in commemoration, art, and education, hearings and events. And at the end of the inquiry there's 1,484 family members and survivors providing testimony, and 819 individuals shared through artistic expression. 83 experts, knowledge keepers, and officials provided testimony, and 15 community hearings, 9 knowledge keeper, expert, and institutional hearings. Saskatoon was selected as one of the 9 family hearing locations. During the inquiry, we did keep submitting things we wanted as the inquiry was going. And we advocate for family information liaison units. In Saskatchewan, we asked for 5, but we got 1 at the beginning, and now we have 2. And FSIN hosts 1 with 3 staff, the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, where Myrna is now. And basically the FILUs are a navigator and support place for families to navigate the justice system. It's kind of has to do with, where do you find funds for missing? When do you declare a person deceased? families ask all sorts of questions that we aren't aware how to answer, and that's kind of where the family information liaison units, and I'm pretty sure they're expanded. And at the beginning, it was temporary during the inquiry, and with a lot of advocacy, again, they're permanent. So we're glad about that, because there's still so much to do. And I think for Saskatchewan, we have 158 families registered with the FSIN in particular. So I'm not sure what the numbers are at the Métis Nation. So basically, this fast-moving train was something all of us parties withstanding had to really catch up on. There's two areas in this fast-moving train that I want to take mention. The aftercare services came out of a meeting with Minister Bennett at the time, saying we need health supports during the inquiry. And I think she got 9 million during that June, and by July that summer, it was all accounted for. So there was an indicator that we really needed that aftercare and care during the inquiry. Then you had commemoration, and that's a meeting we had here in Saskatoon with Minister Monsef when she was the status of women, and she asked, what do you guys think we should be doing as well? And we all talked about commemoration. So there was a lot of commemoration money during the end of the inquiry and throughout the pandemic. And Nisquewick participated in about 4 commemoration projects in the province. So we actually, some of those commemoration projects took over 2 or 3 years to complete because of the slowdown of the pandemic. Next slide, please. Yeah.
Excuse me, Darlene, I'm so sorry to ask you, but do you think that we could complete the presentation within the next 5 minutes? It's just that we're running quite a bit over time right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to bring this up, but because you're important, but I think we're going to need to have a break for people very soon.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought I'd have more time, seeing that Sandra was not going to be speaking.
No, please proceed.
Okay, what slide is this then? What number is this one?
This is Human Rights Watch report.
Okay, what's the page number at the bottom?
It is 15.
Oh, then I'm almost done.
Okay, thank you so much, Darlene.
I had to throw this in there. During the inquiry, we worked with the Human Rights Watch USA, and they came to Saskatoon to begin research on allegations of police abuse against Indigenous women and girls. They were submitted to the government on the failures to protect Indigenous women. Over 60 women were privately interviewed, and we provided over 50 recommendations to Saskatchewan police forces. It's a similar report that BC had in 2013. And the launch and report was supported and collaborated with those groups. And we launched it on 2 days before National Indigenous Day, purposely to remind the country and Saskatoon and Saskatchewan that we have a problem with police forces with Indigenous women. Next page, please. There's inquiry images back up there. And Jody Wilson, down below there's swarm of media, and some of the commissioners. Oh, actually 4 of them there with our Saskatchewan community leads. Our central pictures of Michele and Myrna and myself. That was a family gathering in Saskatoon. And then images of the inquiry and the final report. Next slide, please. So in Saskatoon, we're creating our Office of the Matriarch. We bought the final volume 1 and 2, and we presented to the City Council at the request of the Mayor, and a motion to begin the calls for justice, 231 recommendations. We created an advisory with family advocates and agencies, created a coming home document that's 202 pages to talk about bringing care, honor, attention to Indigenous women, and bring transformation and innovation. Next slide, please. So these are your ally dates, and it's recorded, so you'll see that these are the dates that allies can really work to plan with Indigenous people and families. Next slide, please. And of course, there's some resources to read that people can see in the recording. Next slide, please. Thank you, and ekusi pitema to the host, and most importantly, and thankfully to Mary for the song and the land acknowledgement. And this is how I could be reached. There you go.
Darlene, thank you so much. I'm really impressed with the PowerPoint and the important information in it, and your thoughtfulness with providing us with resources and ways to show up at different events that are very key events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very grateful to you very much. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to have a 10-minute break. I know that people will need it. This is a lot of information. I constantly think about those families and communities that have been discussed so far. And I am really grateful for all the information that has been shared. So we'll take a 10-minute break now. And so that means that we'll be back in Vancouver time. That will be back about 3 o'clock. So we'll have a half an hour after that to have discussion. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Thank you so much, Darlene. Thank you.
Hi, Judy. I'm finally here.
Oh, hi, Mariko. Good.
I'm at a prior commitment, so I just got done.
Okay.
So how's it been going?
I think it's been really good. It's been extremely heartfelt, huge knowledge, huge information from all the speakers. It's just been amazing, really.
Awesome.
I'm so
glad to hear.
Yeah.
And you didn't really need, I realize you probably didn't need me, but I was so happy to be able to at least be in solidarity with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mariko.
That's good to see. Izumi-san, Izumi Sakamoto's here.
Yeah.
Hey, Judy?
Yes.
It's Bernie. I was having problems with my, it kept stopping and going, and then I have to re-sign in. About 6 times I've had to do that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's awful.
But
I know. I admitted you 2 times. I didn't know what was happening for you.
Yeah, no, it was just going right off on me. I don't know if I was in a dead zone or what.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're there. I'm amazed at all the incredible information we're getting, and it's such rich information. It's Darlene gave such a good profile of what's going on in her area. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's very sad that it's not happening here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
But we're going to change that.
Yeah. We'll have to keep working together, Bernie. We'll work together.
Exactly. That's what it's about. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have supper. It's supper time here. It's 6 o'clock in Quebec, so the camera will be off, but I'm gonna have my soup.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Love you, Bernie. Love you. I love you.
Who is that?
Love you more, Michelle.
Yeah.
That's Michelle. She's got to go have supper.
Yes. Yeah. It's 6 o'clock. Okay. Well, we'll get back on in about 5 more minutes, I guess. I said at 3 o'clock. And then there's just the last half hour, Bernie. But I think it'll just be an open talk with people's ideas about what could be done and how to work together, and I think that'll be the focus. And then at the end, we'll have some closing remarks from Terumi, and then we'll close it off. And so I think that, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of people here. I'm so glad. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything anybody wants to know about the Japanese Canadian community at all, or anything like that?
I had my greatest teacher was Grace.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't know whether Atsumi's here. Atsumi, are you here? Atsumi?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. You know, we didn't see whether or not there were Japanese language speakers coming on at all, and just wondering if there was anything that you picked up from.
No, I didn't see any comments in the chat, but I think they're gonna be talking in the dialogue. And if they need any translation assistance, I will be happy to provide. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a couple more minutes, and then we'll get back on.
Right. Did you see the message I sent you?
No. And what was that? No. What was it?
Oh, yeah. I just sent a direct message to you, but I think after the break, I think we should ask participants to turn on, if comfortable, only if comfortable, turn on the camera, because it's more respectful to the speakers, and then we're trying to build a sense of community through this important work. So, yeah, that's my suggestion.
And let's see, did you put it in the chat? Did you put it in the
I
chat?
just sent that to you, not to everyone.
Oh, you mean on my text?
No, on Zoom.
Okay. Do you think we can ask to turn on the camera as it is?
But I know there are people who have different situations and environments, so I don't want to force it, but just a suggestion. Yeah.
Okay. I can certainly ask that. If people would rather not, I totally respect that as well. Yes.
I will respect that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think Darlene provided a lot of really good information, including books to read, and I really appreciate what the content of her PowerPoint. So thank you so much, Darlene.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one of the books that she recommended was Highway of Tears.
Yes.
I guess you can't see it, but okay. But I have a copy that I've had for a while. It's very informative.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Liz.
And also to Judy, your colleagues there too. I don't know if you guys have seen the wasn't a movie, but it's called On the Farm.
On the Farm.
On the Farm. It's about the missing women with Robert Willie Tipton.
Actually, there was a Dateline did a whole show about Highway of Tears, the area.
Yeah, it's a really it's a small, it's like a documentary and that, but it's I don't know. I came out of it, feeling like a little bit angry in that, because there was enough evidence to, even with his brother and other people involved with these murders, but it kind of brings you right to the beginning, but it really wasn't the beginning in that, because he was already started killing the women and in the early 90s and that. I would estimate late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's very, you have to be ready for it. Like I came out of it because we were so much involved because we knew the majority of these women.
Yes.
And but what appalled me, you know, through everything in that is when he filed for his appeal and there was really nothing. We were trying to pull something together, but nobody really, it's almost like nobody really wanted to get involved with it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, yeah, but if that's the other one to watch in that.
Yeah.
Is that one. And the other one is Finding Dawn. Called Finding Dawn.
Yes.
So if you looked at that one too, those are really in depth. That was based on Dawn Cray.
Yes.
He was actually one of my clients too back then.
Yeah. I remember that about Dawn.
Yeah.
Her brother Ernie Cray. It's her brother.
Ernie Cray, yeah.
We're back now, everybody. We're back. It's after 3 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead with the program. This is the part where the speakers can dialogue with one another, and we as participants, Japanese Canadian participants, can also come forward with questions and any thoughts as well regarding ideas about ways that we can work in solidarity and be in partnership with the families and communities of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls Two-Spirit. So Bernie, if you'd like to start, that would be fine, and Darlene as well, and also Lorna. If there are things that you would like to further comment on, and then you can also present your thoughts or ideas as you speak to Japanese Canadians who are participating in this Zoom. So
I just want to say to Darlene, you know, what an amazing presentation that you have there. I would really like to see that out here and share that information. One of the things that we are really lacking is shared information in that.
Yeah, that's right.
And I would really like to see that. And the other information that we have, I don't know if it's been brought up, but we are planning another walk to Ottawa with the final report card, and it's a F-, of course, that we're going to present to the government. But we are planning to walk from Vancouver to Ottawa again with that. Very frustrated. I know that our new mayor right now, has been trying to do the best that he can, but I think that we need to have these dialogues also with him there too, and the three levels of government and that too. But again, I'm really tired of sitting at tables, saying the same old thing and nothing has changed in that. And because I feel like I've, that's all I've been saying, the same thing. Mm-hmm. And
yes,
yeah, I'm very frustrated. I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about, as we speak right now, like, how many other women, how many other are being violated, missing, there's so many variables in that. And I know, as a survivor myself and as a family member, I am very frustrated. I think that nationally, I think that we, you know, and it always comes back to the families. Like, it always feels like the families are the ones that really have to do this work just to get that. And then we're told sometimes that we're angry, that, well, you know, it's about frustration in that, you know. I'm on the front lines every day, almost every day, and I know that the family members are on the front lines. You know, when the posters go up, and you know, it hits your soul all the time. And then we're called upon to go out and look, and sometimes, you know, we don't get a heck of a response right away, and it's that frustration. And we've been trying to work on. It's called at the first 72 hours and that. What does that look like? So we, you know, we're right out there. You know, at that 72 hours, like, is so critical in that, eh? And one of the things that we've been really, we've been finding, and I don't know like about Darlene or Lorna and or the other family members that may be online. It's always trying to find space for the families when they come into town looking for their loved ones. It's always a scramble to look for any gift cards or for gas or for food. Lodging is always a really hard thing in that. I know that through Kelsey Poorman's dad, he ended up staying in his van. And it's just really frustrating trying to ask for those help, you know, can you guys donate, you know, as gift cards for food, or if they could sponsor a family for a hotel, or you got gift cards you can give for their gas and that. So that's one of my key things in that, eh?
Yeah.
Is reaching out to those families who are coming in, because like they're tired, like they're exhausted. Sometimes they're walking all night in that. And it would be nice to have like a safe space for them if they're coming from out of town, up north or Vancouver Island or back east and that we have a network, you know, while of family members or even organizations, just to reach out to these families and see if we could, you know, it's usually the families that are always supporting the families, but it would be nice if we had a space that is exclusively, you know, set up, you know, to host the families and that, to make sure that they're not burning out or anything. That's really, you know, and I know several families come in. Every month they're coming in, but we've got nothing for them.
Yeah.
So that would be my really big thing in that, a safe, comfortable place that where, you know, that they could have a time to rest, or even a hotel rooms for them and that. I know what it felt like for me when my son went missing and he was gone for a week. And you're almost spinning in circles in that. And it's just like, you know, you're thinking of the words, but yet you can't think that way. You got to be positive. Well, sometimes it's really hard. And just for the families like to feel that, you know, but that's what I wanted to share with that.
Yeah. I can add to that what Bernie's saying, because that's exactly where we start when somebody sends us an inbox or Myrna is contacted, is, you know, where are they? Are they coming into town? You know, we got to tread carefully with the family's ability to share what they know they might not think is going to be helpful, but for us to help them navigate the situation offhand, and you do need to have that comfort in a space. Just recently, they launched the Red Eagle Lodge in the core of Saskatoon, but I think that's a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 thing. But that's where they want families to to come when they need to decompress from court or from a search, that they can at least go sit and chill and have some soup and sit with someone. So that just opened. And Vice Chief Ali Bear from the FSIN, she spent a few years pushing that through because it had been sitting with previous women's secretariats that are no longer with the secretariat. So it's been, I'd say, since the inquiry began, that they've been wanting this Red Lodge open. So finally, the federal government gave them some money. And they also, because of the Indigenous women that leave the Maple Creek Healing Lodge or Pine Grove in Prince Albert, they go walking, they come to town, they can't find any place to sleep. A few years ago, a Squirrel woman, that's her last name, she died because she went to lay down in the back of a truck. And we don't know if that was because she needed to sleep or she had nowhere to go. She wasn't even out of release from jail more than 2 weeks. And so the Saskatoon Tribal Council created a 18-bed facility that opened last year as well in response. So we're doing what we can here, but at the same time, that whole communication piece can be so disorienting and squirrely. And you think that, oh, they're covering it. And then Esquoiak has no money, no office, no infrastructure. We do manage to give them some money. And I shouldn't laugh, but it's just kind of like, what are they asking us to give them money for? You have like $1 million, but that's what Bernie is sharing. It's like, what are they doing with this money? It's really frustrating and hurtful because we're the front line, they're reaching out to us, and then they get further discouraged if we share that. But we don't, the most part, we will try to find what it is they need at the offset. And I think that's where people can keep their eyes and ears open, because there usually is a kind of a donation, quick response. And it's like an underground. It's kind of like this circle and this family, and everybody does try to be there for each other. But it's at the same time, it doesn't seem right that people are patting themselves on the back, like Saskatchewan, after the inquiry, just came and gave themselves an A+ for everything they're doing. And that's not the case, so, it can be frustrating and hurtful.
Thank you for the information. It's really, it's so important for us to hear the real situation on the ground. It's so important because, and then it makes us as Japanese Canadians think of, well, what are the on the ground ways that we could be of support then? And so this is really a great opportunity to have these ideas shared. So thank you for that very much. I'd like to open up for participants on the Zoom to submit their questions. So if anybody has a question, can we see and can I get some help with looking for raised hands and seeing if we can tune into people at this point? Okay.
Can I say something?
Do we see questions here? I can't see any right now.
Can I say something? Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And also, if people wouldn't mind, could they put on their video so that they can be seen? We're just asking that, just as Atsumi suggested, as a sense of a community amongst us. But also, if you really are not comfortable, that is perfectly fine. And we totally respect that. But we ask if you can put on your video so that you can be a part of us. Thank you so much. And if you do not want to, that is fine too. Thank you. Do we have any questions at all? Oh, Les, you have a question.
Yeah, question to Bernie, Darlene, Lorna. It takes a long time for cultures to change. But we've been working on this for a long time, and I think one of the root frustrations we've had is the lack of response from authorities when somebody goes missing. And I'm just wondering, maybe Bernie has already answered this question, and saying she hasn't seen any change, but whether you've seen a change in attitude from the RCMP, the police service, and we're talking about Saskatoon, Vancouver, I guess, but whether there's been any noticeable change in that respect.
Bernie, you're on mute.
Sorry, I have to say from what I've seen out here, and there's other frontline workers that will probably say the same thing. All I see is more police presence. When Mayor Kim's came in, that was one of the things that he did, mentioned that they were bringing in 100 police officers. What the reasonings are, I still always question the reasonings according to them, but the answer is no. I'm currently working at downtown Eastside Courts right now for just filling a space right now until they hire full time. But what I've noticed is that when we speak to the women, especially in that whether it's domestic violence or warrants, whatever, like it's just gotten really brutal in that these are young men and women that are coming in to the downtown east side that don't have a clue about. And one of the things that I was really appreciative is that we met back then. I was Butterworth in that, and on the promissory that things could be better in that, and on the things it could be better. But you know what? It's never changed. All there is the young ones that are coming in that I've got so much to say, but I have to be really careful how I say things in that too. And because what we see is more police presence than nothing has changed. And women are in fear. Somebody, I believe it was Darlene that was talking about the rapes and that are still happening. And that's what's happening down here. They are scared to report anything. Those barriers have not been broken down at all yet. My assumption, I guess, was hoping that through the national inquiry, through all of this, and the work is already done there, we just got to execute it, like I said, that they would have learned from that, but nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing. Maybe in other areas, but I'm only speaking as a frontline worker, as what I see. Absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
Darlene, would you like to make a comment, and also Honorable Senator?
Yeah, in Saskatoon, the numbers are really low for missing, because when we started our work, I think there's like 15 just around this territory when we started this work. Like our numbers are down for, missing, but the number of news releases, because I subscribe to those news releases from the police, and there's like 3 a day. This girl is missing. This woman's missing. This man is missing. And help the public. And then you find out with your police chief that they only have 2 investigators. It's like, it's even them trying to get money for investigators. They have PACT. And I mentioned that to Minister Bennett when she was visiting, when she was with the Indigenous Circle. And we told her we need more PACT. Like there's, I think 3, it's kind of mental policing and another piece where they all kind of go to a site where there's a situation and they all work together to help that person. So there's kind of like prevention or stopping and then building a circle around helping that they need more people. I'll give you an example from a document someone sent me last fall that the government for Saskatchewan put $9 million towards more ankle bracelets supervision, staffing, whatever, and only 400,000 to MMIW. So when you hear that, it's like, okay, they just want to police us, majority Indigenous women. But, you know, it's like, it seems like there's some kind of progress with the engagement and conversation, and it can be so slow. And I'm not going to say Saskatchewan's perfect. Like Canada, we're still so underdeveloped. People think we're a developed country, and we're not. You know, if we were, there wouldn't be so much situation happening to Indigenous people through this genocide. So, you know, there's so much work to do.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Thank you, Darlene. And Senator Audette, would you like to comment as well? And I know you have your hand up as well.
Merci beaucoup. Do you hear me? I have all my teenagers and the dog and the friends behind you. So, during the national inquiry, it was amazing to see across Canada, cities, provinces, or isolated village community, police force taking back or reopening cold cases. I was like surprised. Even in Quebec, we have the Sûreté du Québec, and Ontario, the OPP, and the rest. There's no provincial police. It's either the RCMP and etc. And few places after the inquiry kept those cold cases open. Some of them found who was the serial killer or who did the crime and so on. The other one, because we took the plug off, whatever we say in French, of the inquiry at midnight on that July 1st, 2019, didn't have to bother, didn't have to push, because the pressure wasn't there anymore. And let's remember also, when we presented the report, it was just a couple weeks before a federal election. 2015, Darlene showed you some pictures where it was a political party in her picture, but the other one also made a commitment: if I'm elected within the 100 days, we'll have a national inquiry, but not the conservative. And but in 2019, because we presented the report, it wasn't on the radar or on the agenda on any, you know, member who was running again or trying for the first time. So the pressure wasn't there anymore. So, and we all know, or we should know, in politics, the worst enemy is the social media, the media. Every day we organize our day according what was on Twitter, X, Facebook, or on the newspaper, etc. So if we don't bring back on this political agenda some call for justice, because if we just say all the call for justice, we lose people. There's too many, or there's so many, or there's not enough, but people don't see it the way Darlene and many of us, we see it because it's our life. You know, it's holistic. It's all of us, or it's within all of us. But what we can do, because I know some people didn't come, I see a comment, they should have come, blah, blah. It's normal. Even in our own community, they don't come. I think, Darlene, you mentioned some of your sibling or your cousin, nieces don't come. Same with me, they don't come. But we can manage to inform them in different ways. You have, with her PowerPoint, all those dates in every month that we can celebrate, honor, or commemorate. So you can do it. You know, today it's da 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 da, and let's think about the stolen sisters, or let's think, or a virtual vigil you put on your Facebook, you candlelight, like we used to do with NWAC. So there's many ways that you can turn around and say, okay, fine, you didn't come, but we will continue to educate, to promote, and walk with the women that shared their stories during that Zoom event. So that's why, for me, I push slowly few calls for justice, but each time there's an event or something, At the Senate, I make sure that I raise the number XXY to remind them that you in your business, or you in your university, or you as a frontline worker, here places you can push with me or with all of us. So it's normal. It took 40 years for families to have a national inquiry, if it's not more. And to change the system, it's going to take generation, but at least we're doing it. That's how I see it. I could be somewhere else tonight. It's supper time here. I have kids. Same for all of us, but because few of us believe that we can learn from each other. So I'm not discouraged. I think I can be mad, of course, but I want to change that to say, okay, we have at least 1 or 15 or 23 people on our side today. That's how I see it. And then the circle grow and grow and grow.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. I'm going to read a comment here that's in the chat. And it's from, I'm not sure, but I will just read it out. And thank you so much to this participant for sending this in. Not much a question, but opinion as a Japanese immigrant settler. I am concerned about the response from Japanese Canadians. I have posted about the event on every platform I know of. A couple of friends came today, for which I am very grateful. However, many JC members do not even discuss settler colonialism. I would like to continue discussing how JC can work towards decolonization and provide resources for MMIWG2S+ issues and families. I'm grateful for that comment. Thank you so much. It's about our community learning amongst ourselves how to raise our knowledge and how to be better partners and in solidarity with the families and communities. So thank you for that comment. Question, do you feel that the 95 calls to action include the answers to addressing MMIWG2S+ issues? Are there gaps? I think we know there are gaps. We've learned all about the gaps today. Are there gaps? Which calls are the most pressing and to advocate for in the context of MMIWG2S+? I think if I'm not mistaken, and others can add to this, but both Bernie and Honorable Senator talked about the 2 points that needed to be addressed, and that was the ombudsperson and the Human Rights Tribunal for Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women. Could I ask if those are the priorities right now as far as what must happen at this stage right now?
Judy, if I may,
Yes.
quickly,
Yes.
It was very personal for me, those 2 calls for justice, but
Yes.
many family members in 2021 presented to us and to Canada, and Bernie was involved, 8 call for justice, very, very important, which one of them was reopening those cold cases with a national task force, and silent from the federal government. But it's not complicated, it's feasible. So there's many. So for me, those are the 2 major, because it will, how do you say, like an umbrella force to activate the other one, because people will have to respond. It was our money who paid for that inquiry, people who pay tax. So, but coming from a grassroots organization, it's probably something else. Coming from an academic perspective, well, let's redo the history in our course. So it depends where you're from. So there's not one better than the other one, but how me and my expertise I can animate or make it alive.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We could be standing by. We're getting to the end. I will not go on with other questions to the speakers because of the time. I'm so sorry about that. But I have to say, every minute was so valuable of what was shared. so valuable. And thank you so very, very, very much. At this point, we're going to ask Terumi Kawada to say a few words, because Terumi reached out and was able to find Darlene, Sandra, I'm sorry, Sandra Delarond. And Terumi, please speak and say what you'd like to say.
There's so many thoughts that are going through my head, but the last thought that Senator Audette said really resonated with me in terms of, she said something about, you know, our voice must be heard, and more than anything, the voice of women who have felt that they have no protection, they have no safety net, they can't speak. And so the voice of women, the voice of all people come together in solidarity and in a sense of humanity and respect for one another. And I'm really honored by the comment that you made, Senator Audette, in saying, you know, you start with one voice, and now, you know, we have 25 people who we now have made a voice. And it's like the old saying that says, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first mile. And it's that kind of beginning for many allies who want to know how to help and how to support the Indigenous communities who are trying to make sense of why things haven't happened for a lot of their young women and older women and people who are missing and presumed dead. And why do we have to always be faced with these tragedies and these sadness? And many of you speakers were so brave in talking about how things started for you, because it started with a tragedy, and it started with sadness and sorrow for your families. And so, you know, you use that sadness and sorrow to begin something that would be moving forward in a positive way for a lot of women who don't have a voice, who don't feel safe, and who don't feel like they're valued in any way. So I think as an ally, my experience working with a number of different organizations is that I have learned a lot from my work with other organizations. And I believe standing together in the voice of humanity and security and human rights, justice and peace, we must all stand together. And we need to, as a Japanese Canadian community, we need to educate ourselves about what we can do to help. And this is one of those things that we can do, is we stand together with other communities, and we learn, and we try to put some of that learning into an action that we can do. So thank you to all of the speakers, and to Mary, who started us off with a wonderful prayer and song. I was just in Gary Point Park yesterday, and the wonderment and the beauty of that park was just overwhelming for me. I'm originally from Winnipeg, and but when I come to BC, it always feels like it's home to me as well. So thank you to all who participated today and gave us all some more things to think about what we can do as human beings standing together. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Terumi. I'm going to be closing now. What I'm thinking, though, is I would really like to have a moment of silence in memory of those who've perished, and in thoughtfulness for the families who have lost their loved ones or are missing their loved ones. And before I do that, though, I'd like to really, really thank you. Thank you to all the speakers, to Honorable Senator Michele, to Bernie to Galjijat. I'm sorry, Bernie, I don't pronounce it properly, but Skundaal Bernie, to Darlene. Darlene, your PowerPoint was incredible. It's such a gift to us to have that, and to have your approval of recording it. Thank you so much. So now, in my gratitude, in our gratitude, and in our thinking, could we have a moment of silence and then sign off? Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you all very much.